Most plant influencers are showing you the results, not the process. And if your plants don't look like theirs, there's a good reason, and it's probably something they're not showing you. Hi, my name is Memo, this is my channel, Houseplantygoodness, and essentially it's a place where I like to geek out about my big passion. You might be able to see some of it behind me, it's tropical houseplants. So by the end of this video, I want you to be able to understand why your plants might not be looking like the plants you're seeing online. And the most important thing that you can learn and take away from this video that goes above anything like lights, fertilizer, anything like that. And I know before you all come for me, not all plant influencers are the same. Some people will do this, some other people won't do this. It's not always malintended, and I am not going to be excluded from me kind of going through this list either. There are certain things that some people just don't do because it's habit rather than malintended. This is not me poo-pooing on any other plant content creators or influencers out there. This is more me kind of trying to shift your view so you can be more realistic in your expectations. So the first thing I want us to discuss is the example of Instagram versus reality. And I'm using that as a simple example because everybody knows that Instagram is always like, look, this is a pretty plant, look at this pretty plant. And the big thing here is just selection bias. It is just selection bias. It's a lot easier for me to bring up a plant that looks nice and lush and green and it's blooming versus a plant that, oh, my little Hoya retusa at the moment is not having the best of times. It's still got some green, but there's been some overwatering that has happened. You can see the yellowing of the leaves. It's a lot easier for me to just pick up this plant, and I'm using me as an example. I'm not poo-pooing on any specific influencer. It's a lot easier for me to pick up this plant to kind of showcase something that I'm going to be talking about rather than a plant that looks busted. And we all do this unintentionally. It's not always unintended, I will say this as well, but a lot of the time it's unintentional because, and I'll give you a specific example, and this is no hate on the person that made this comment. It was a valid comment, but you can understand why even we would select something that looks a bit better. Because I was doing a video the other day, I can't even remember what the topic was, and one of the comments was, good advice, but why the hell would I listen to your advice when you've got crispy, busted looking plants looking behind you? And I'm just like, I could sit there and explain for a millionth time why some of these plants have got some crispy tips behind me and the fact that it was winter and all these things, but that individual doesn't care. That individual just wants to kind of poo-poo on something because they're just like, see, I'm better than you. I've had enough of everybody showing their positive looking plants. And when we all get questions, it's just like, why don't you show us some of the busted looking plants or the realities? This is why individuals like that ruin it for everybody, because it's just a bit like, I could just show you the stuff that's doing really well and just keep it at that as well. Because if it's the same situation, if you've got nothing nice to say, maybe don't say anything at all, basically, in this situation. But it is the realities of that. And it's kind of cyclical as well. Some of it is done by the content creators themselves just because it's easier to pick up a perfect looking plant and show you. Some of it is just like, if I don't show a perfect looking plant and I show one that's busted, everybody's just going to be like, well, that's busted. Why would we listen to you? I don't know, maybe the fact that we've been growing all of these plants for as long as we have, and we've done content and YouTube and for years, and we've had some of these plants for decades on end, that might be part of the reasons. But sorry, slightly salty. Shouldn't be, but I'm slightly salty. I'm still human. These things still get to me. As I said, no hate to the commenter. It's a valid comment, even if I don't necessarily like it, but you know. The other thing is that growth is not linear, and this isn't something that a content creator can always show you, because when you've got as many plants as some of us do, and you're kind of doing a topic on a video, it's very difficult to show you, and you know what, this plant that we were talking about last week, there's something that's happened, but if I show it to you again, you're going to get sick and tired of seeing the same plant over again. But an example would be this kind of croton here as well. And you can see it's doing the whoop because it's against a window, and I do not follow my own advice, and I have never really rotated this plant, mainly because I don't care to rotate this. This is fine. I get a pretty looking plant this way around, it's fine. But you can also see some stalled growth, and I've done an entirely different video on how I've been able to learn over the years and what I've learned over the years for 5 of the most difficult types of houseplants, and that will be coming out later on this week on my second video drop this week. So stay in tune for that one. But this is going to be a plant example that I'm giving here because you can see there was a stall growth, there was a small growth, and all of a sudden it's growing big. That is going to be something that you're not always going to see, but that is part of normality. Sometimes you're going to get stall growth. Sometimes you're going to get growth that's kind of going towards the light and your plant is tilting. These things do happen to everybody, including the content creators and plant influencers that you're seeing out there. And then there's the pest problem that nobody shows. And most of my plants that have got heavy infestation of pests, I can't bring down because they're too large, but I will put a picture here because I am airing out all my dirty laundry on the internet today. But you can see anybody and everybody can and will at some point get pests. Sometimes it could be a large amount of pests, sometimes it could be a small amount of pests. Do not kick yourself on the reality that is, at some point, invariably, everybody will get pests. And I do kind of find it encouraging, and not in a bad way. This is not me being a bitch. But I do find this quite encouraging that a lot of people that were even a bit smug, like a few years ago, going, I have never had pests, and almost looking down on some people. Not saying that everybody did that, but some of those individuals are just like, oh yeah, no, I've had pests now, and I'm struggling with it. And I'm just like, yes, because this is the reality. This is what everybody has. Again, your content creators aren't always going to be picking up every time they do a video and go, look, 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 this plant looks busted, or look, 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 this plant is like covered in pests at the moment. No, but it is something that will happen to anybody and everybody at different times of the year, or sometimes the entirety of the year. I have said this before. At this point, the mealybugs are pets in this place. They're not wanted pets, they're very much unwanted pests. But they're just part of the collection at this point. I'm trying to stay on top of it as well. But this is what I'm saying. Even we struggle with pests because life gets in the way. Like, you know, you need to do your pest control. You know you need to not have everything as close to each other. But the reality is, life happens. You get busy. You don't have time. You can't bring yourself to sit there and move everything around in your collection for the millionth time. And anybody who has moved their entire plant collection will know why we avoid it like the plague. Otherwise, we'd be doing it all the time, I guess, for most people. But it is a bit arduous. Again, depending on how many plants you've got, but it can be a bit arduous of kind of going, oh, where do I put you now? Where do I move you? And I know that you can work well here. And it's that balancing act that I'm just like, I can't have you near this plant that has got the pest now and I need to move you around. But I don't actually have anywhere that I can put you that will give you the ideal conditions that you need that isn't that location that is right next to the pest. So then you kind of like have to balance and juggle and just go, which is the least of two evils, basically, at that point, and just go with that. So that isn't going to be something that everybody's always going to show you, but it is the reality of what happens is you will get pests, you will deal with them, they will come back. Again, all of us that have done this for a long, long period of time, you'd be surprised. And actually, I know quite a few content creators who have been going on, and so have I, for years on the beneficial insects. And yes, we still swear by them fully, basically. But there is a point where now a lot of the people that were just like, I'm never going to use pesticide or systemic. And I'm hearing some of them just go, ugh, yeah, I'm not dealing with like beneficial insects as the main kind of way of dealing with this. I just need these out of my collection. I need the pests out of my collection. So I am spraying everything down. It's fine. Growth and learning over the years. And also you need to remember when you're looking at content creators, influencers, all of these people online, we are also in the process of learning the whole way through. It's not like, how do I describe this? If you are talking to a teacher, and a teacher in school, for example, you're just like, oh, you have all of this knowledge that they gained over X amount of years of studying and working, but even they are progressing and they are changing and they're evolving in the way that they teach over their full career. Same thing happens with a lot of the content creators out there and influencers. We are still learning as we're going along, as is usually evident with most of our videos going, we tried this, it didn't work, we're trying this now, hopefully this will work. Do you see what I mean? That part is normal too. The other big thing is that lighting is way more important than we all have time to harp on about, basically. If you look at any of your favorite content creators, influencers out there, I guarantee you at some point they would have done a video or a few videos about the importance of lighting. If it's plant specific, if it's collection specific, all of these things, and it's not always because they're trying to sell grow lights, if that makes sense. It is one of those things that is highly important. The light level that your plants are going to need is going to play a massive role, because again, we need to remember that what we are trying to do in all of our collections is replicate what these plants are used to getting in nature. So if you think about where these plants come from again and how they are growing. So the epiphytes at some point as they're growing up, whatever they're growing, they're expecting to get closer to light sources, because if they're climbing up a tree, they're going up towards the canopy. If it's something that's low growing to the ground, even as large as it gets, it's not going to get that much more light, and there's going to be more dappled light because of how light filters through the canopy of the leaves. All of these things makes it highly, highly important. You would be bored to death if all you got from us in terms of content would be, you need to fix your light. This is what you need to do, and tweak this here and tweak this there, and it's a lot. And I understand this, and it doesn't make for the most entertaining content. And I will tell you something for free, because we see the stats and the analytics, and they're not always that important, but this might paint a picture for you. We are still putting out content on lighting, even if we know when we're creating that content, because we've had a few bits of content out there on light, that the reality is not as many people watch it. Not as many people watch it. And I'll tell you something else as well, that I know that there's a lot of people that are very tired of people doing unboxings, or they're very tired of like plant tours and all of these things where they're just like, no, I want this instead, I want this instead. Well, let me give you, I'm letting you peek behind the curtains of what kind of some of your favorite content creators are kind of judging and how they're doing some of these things. We hear you, and there's only so much kind of unboxing that people can do on video, or even plant tours that people can do on video. But the reality is, there's no two ways around this. Guess what the most successful videos are on most of your content creators' channels? Correct. The plant tours and the unboxings. We hear it, that it's tiring for a lot of people out there, but it is content that people want to watch, as is evident a lot of the times by the viewership numbers. It might not be to everybody's taste, but it is something that will always get viewership. And as I said, we're not all just chasing viewership, but it gives you a bit of an insight as to, oh, that's probably why I'm seeing more of that, because it's the one video. And to be fair, you'd probably be surprised how much you're not seeing as you could. Like, I'm trying to describe this. If somebody was very mercenary, and as I said, most of the planty creators there aren't doing this, but you'd think, it's just like, if the only thing we were after was views, all you would get was unboxings and plant tours. But it isn't. So like, we're still trying to bring out content that's of interest to everybody. And I'm bringing up the example of a peace lily again, just because I want to make a point about the fact that easy plants are not easy for everybody. I've done whole videos on this as well. It is context specific as well. So you need to remember, when you're watching some of these content creators online, whether it's videos, whether it's on Instagram, or anywhere that you're kind of consuming some of this information, it is context specific. And a lot of you are very good at always calling me out on this, going, yeah, Memo, you're finding this interesting, but you're also growing in a conservatory and you've got all of this light and you've got all of this humidity. Good. Think critically. That's what you should be doing, not just with me, with everybody. Because when you're looking at something in anybody's space and they're just like, this is doing great for me, and it's just like, yeah, but is their space, is their context the same as your context? So if you're an overwaterer and you're watching somebody who's only ever done content and they're very vocal about the fact that they're an underwaterer and they're just like, this is super easy for me, guess what that plant won't be for you? Super easy. Because if it's super easy for an underwaterer, 100%, yes, you will be overwatering that plant, because there's a clash of kind of how you do things there. I'm not saying that either one is wrong or right. I'm just saying that you need to remember the context. And I'm not even touching on the context of where these plants originated from, but I'm being specific about the care, the conditions, what that individual's personality is, what they like, what they don't like as well. Because, and this is something that's not discussed very often as well, we all have our favorites, don't we? There's always at least, and that might change every few months or every few weeks or every day, depending on, on your personality. But there's going to be your favorites. Guess what you do with your favorites? You go the extra mile. So when somebody says, this plant has been super easy for me, if that is one of their favorite plants, and it has been for a while, they're probably doing a whole bunch of extra little bits and bobs along the way and correcting and adjusting and all these things, which they probably, again, it might just be that they've not mentioned it on a video because they've forgotten all these things. Because when you do 200 things, you can't mention all 200 things. You need to distill it into something that people can understand and take away easily because, say it with me, we all have much shorter attention spans these days. So this is the thing with something like that, it is going to be context specific. So something that might not be working in your space with your care and your environment and your personality type and how you are dealing with everything versus how it might be dealing with somebody else is important too. Like, it is one of those things that, and some of the audiences that kind of watch me have told me this on occasion. They're just like, we like watching you because you've got similar-ish conditions or similar type of care that you give to your plants. So we know if something's probably worked for you, it might work on them. I get it. But again, you just need to be cognizant of that. It will help you go a long way. I'm not saying if your conditions don't match the other person's conditions, don't watch their videos. But remember that in the back of your mind when you're sitting there alone in your plant room or in your house and you're looking at your plants going, but I've not done this easy care plant. It's not been easy for me. It's been really challenging. Your context is important, as well as the context of the individual's content that you're consuming online. Oh, and then this is going to be a controversial topic. Aesthetic pots with cash pose and things like that versus functional pots. And this is something that I get a lot of heat on occasion on my channel. And it's just like, your pots are never particularly pretty. I hear you. I am not the content creator that you need to be watching if you want pretty pots. No shade to anybody else who enjoys the prettier pots. For me, that's not as important as keeping my plant happy. There is a whole host of content creators out there that are just like, I want my pot to be beautiful because it needs to sit in my space, which is absolutely fine. That's a very valid thing. I'm not judging. But it is one of those things that for them, that's the important element. For me, I want this plant to grow as happily and as large as possible. Whether or not the pot looks like death, neither here nor there. If the plant is happy, I'm happy. That's all I need. And there is situations that even in my own space, I'm just like, I know that this plant needs to sit in like my kitchen diner where I'm going to look at it every single day, then yes, I'm going to need a slightly prettier pot because I need to look at it there. But also at the same time, notice this is just a peace lily. I'm not that fussed if this has a bit of a struggle buzz situation because the important thing at that stage for me is the aesthetics of the plant rather whether or not the plant is happy. Keep in mind, I'm still managing to keep it happy. So humble brag for me. But it is one of those things that you need to remember that there is going to be context there as well. So just because somebody's got beautiful pots doesn't mean you necessarily always should have the beautiful pots, especially if your kind of priorities for that specific plant are different from theirs. If it's not purely on aesthetics and it's more functional, it's entirely fine to have ugly looking pots as long as the plant is happy. Same thing goes that if you don't want to have ugly looking pots because you want something to be aesthetic somewhere, that is entirely fine. But remember that there is a difference, and even within one collection, like as I said, this is in a different room, this is actually in similar, this is in the utility room, so I'm not that fussed about the pot looking horrendous. But the utility room and my kitchen diner are very closely connected. That's why I'm just like, the same room? No, not the same room. But there is going to be a difference. And ultimately, and I know this sounds horrendous as well, but some of the influencers, some of the content creators are going to select something that looks prettier in a pot. Because again, I'm going to be blunt. This looks better as a thumbnail than this for the thumbnail with, like, you know, the moss collar on the top. It looks a bit janky. This video will get more clicks than this video. I know it sounds mercenary, but it is the reality of it for a lot of people out there. And one of the final things I want to touch on is the fact that observation is probably the most important skill. It's not going to be things like schedules. If you're looking at content creators going, well, I want to know how often they're watering their plant and all of these things. Observe your specific plant in your specific conditions under your specific care and then judge accordingly. You can take what all of us are saying online, but remember this, and there's a few of us out there that have mentioned this. The most important bit is you in that equation. What we are providing is kind of ancillary information or secondary information. It's kind of like what has worked for us in case you are a similar individual and similar type of person and how you might care for your plants, to give you a tiny bit of a heads up when you are doing your own observation to just kind of go, ooh, these conditions are similar to memos, or they're similar to content creator X or content creator Y. So actually, their information might be relevant to me, but actually this is slightly different happening. Oh, but that one little thing that they do or have, I don't do it or I don't have it. So that's probably what's going to be different. Observe your plant and see how they react to some of this guidance, and you might need to do minor little tweaks along the way to get it just right for your specific condition. But observation is key, and I've mentioned this previously on other videos. I think it was something along the lines of, if you observe your plants even more than you're watering your plants, your plant care and the growth that you will get from them is a lot higher. And it sounds dumb and it sounds silly and it sounds basic, but you would be surprised if you just took that split second of just kind of going, oh, that's new. I wonder why. It's probably this, and then just move on. But that's more than you just going, right, I need you to be watered and I'm moving on. That's an entirely different thing. That whole thought process took less than a minute of your entire time. Granted, I know if you've got 600 plants, that's 600 minutes. That's a lot. I get it. I'm not saying to do this every single time, but start observing a bit more when you're looking at your plants around and just kind of go, oh, yeah, that's probably what's happening here. And this is probably what adjustment I'm going to need to make in order to keep this specific plant happy. But into some of my final thoughts. That one thing that I said was going to make a big difference. And I didn't lie to you, but it's going to be a combination of things. It's one kind of mind shift. Think about it that way. So it's a combination of all of the things. So light, airflow, substrate. These things are equally important when it comes to growing good plants. And again, it's difficult for all the influencers to touch on every single one of those elements every single time, because then all you're going to be getting from us is a list. So learn over a spectrum of different videos, different content that content creators are putting out there, images, blogs, whatever, however you're consuming your content, learn from all of that. And you are the element there. You are the main key of just kind of going, okay, this information about lighting, this information about watering, this information about soil, this information about airflow, and I'm observing the plants. Done. All the information that I need in one little tight package up in my brain of going, okay, I think I've got this now. I think I know what I need to be doing here as well. But also the really important thing is struggle is normal. You will get pests. We all get pests. You will have crispy leaves. We all get crispy leaves at one point or another. The struggle is universal and it is a real. It's just that you might not be seeing that all the time, purely because either for aesthetic reasons, for repetition reasons, depression reasons as well, because I've had a few comments that have come, valid comments as well, from people kind of going, oh, some of your content's been a bit more, the depressing side of things is a bit more negative, but I'm just like, yeah, but we need to touch on that as well. It can't always be happy, cheery all the time, because plants, much like life, will have the ups and downs, as do we as well. So it's part of the journey. The end destination is always going to be the end destination, but we still need to enjoy the journey. And I think that's something that a lot of us forget out there after years or months of doing this, that actually the journey is the real fun bit. It's the learning. It's the, oh yeah, I did this, and I'll celebrate the small win here, and I've had a bit of a loss there, and that's fine, but I've learned from it here, and doing all these different things, that's the most important thing. And the one thing that I will say, on behalf, and I'm not talking for, I was going to say on behalf of all content creators and influencers, I'm not going to talk for everybody else. I'll talk about myself as a content creator. My kind of goal for making these videos, first and foremost, is for it to be educational, fun, and entertaining, really, for the people out there. And it's also an outlet for me to be able to geek out with what is essentially all of you, which is, I consider like my online planty friends, that I can talk to about these things, because if I talk to anybody else in my life who's not really into plants, they'll glaze over. And I think that might be true for a lot of us. I'm not going to talk for everybody else on behalf of everybody else, but I think that might be true for everybody. So if sometimes we mess up, if sometimes you see something that you don't like, we're still humans, it'll happen. Hopefully the next video will be something you'll enjoy a bit more. So yes, hopefully you've enjoyed. Hopefully I shall see you here soon. And I truly, truly hope that you have a great rest of your day. Thanks. Bye.